old buddy Jim Harbaugh is back in the news again, back in the headlines, back in the crosshairs of the NCAA for all of the wrong reasons. We're going to get into everything that happened on Thursday. I'll give you everything that we know up until this moment. But just understand this is an ever-evolving story. Things are changing. Things will continue to change. And I am just kind of reacting to the news that we have in real time. For people who do not know, obviously, Jim Harbaugh and Michigan were in the midst of an NCAA investigation all summer. But on Thursday, we found out that there is yet a different investigation, and in this case, undoubtedly more serious, as Michigan football, not Jim Harbaugh necessarily, but Michigan football is accused of sending assistant coaches on the road to scout future opponents. And essentially, the insinuation is that they have been sent to future opponents to essentially try and steal signs so they can get an advantage when they play. Story was first broken by Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger, and Dan Wetzel. And let's get a couple clarifications out of the way right now. So to be clear, one, it is not illegal to technically steal signs, although it is very unethical. Where the issue comes in, by the way, all sorts of schools through the years have been accused of stealing signs. Most notably, Brent Venables, when he was at Clemson, it was an ongoing conversation. Is that guy stealing signs? Is he not? But essentially, Michigan was accused of sending coaches on the road in advance of big games, not just this year, but in previous years, maybe in advance of college football playoff games to do this. And so, again, it's not illegal to try and steal signs, although, again, it is completely unethical. Where the issue comes in is you cannot send coaches on the road. NCAA bylaw 11.6.1 reads, off-campus, in-person scouting of future opponents in the same season is prohibited. So bottom line is you can dance around it however you want. You can say whatever you want. It is illegal to send assistant coaches or coaches on the road to visit other teams. So that is what Michigan is accused of. Again, it is not illegal to steal signs, although I will say there is one caveat. If you're somehow getting into the headset, if you're able to hear the electronic communication, that's different. But sending the coach on the road is illegal. And again, this is after an NCAA investigation this offseason that got Jim Harbaugh that 3-game suspension to start the year. Couple other notes. One, we've seen coaches insinuate this throughout the year. Greg Schiano at halftime of the Rutgers-Michigan game kind of hinted at, we got to switch some things up because it feels like they know some things about what we're doing. So this hasn't necessarily been a totally kosher. Like, people in the Big Ten appear to have kind of had an idea about this. And it is worth noting, the Big Ten has released a statement basically saying we do not condone this. Beyond that, they've alerted future opponents. There was like half a second where Michigan State threatened to cancel the game this weekend, which is the lamest thing ever, but neither here nor there. And Michigan has said that they plan to cooperate going forward. And so I want to break it all down. That is the update. That is what you need to know. Again, assistant coaches on the road, future opponents attempting to steal signs. And let me just say, this is a bad look. And I think it's safe to say that I think we're starting to see the end of the Jim Harbaugh era. I think he's going to be in the NFL next year. As far as the bad stuff, listen, we all know like where we're at with the NCAA. And I don't think any of us really cared all that much about the summer's transgressions for Michigan football, right? Michigan, at the time was accused of maybe bringing recruits on campus illegally during COVID. Not the greatest thing in the world, giving them free hamburgers, free meals. And again, I think Michigan felt like they addressed that in the offseason. It's rule breaking. You should be punished. The rules have changed, whatever. But at the end of the day, they broke rules. Jim Harbaugh got his 3-game suspension and we all moved on. This to me, though, is a lot different because this to me is not just a recruiting advantage or whatever. This is a game, potentially a game altering type of thing. And I think more importantly, a couple things. One, there's going to be some kind of future punishment from the NCAA. We'll see what happens. But two, I do think it sort of calls into question a lot of what Michigan has accomplished over the last couple of years. Listen, I'm the guy that's been saying on this pod all season long, Thank you, everybody, as always, for your support of the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. And we have a major announcement as legal sports betting is now in the state of Kentucky. That is right. The Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube has partnered with DraftKings Sportsbook and the DraftKings Sportsbook app. And here is the best part. DraftKings has an incredible offer for listeners of the Aaron Torres Pod who are first-time customers with DraftKings. This is the deal. Here's what you need to know. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Bet $5 on any game, just $5, and you get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you use the promo code Torres. That's right. It's that simple. Again, first-time customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, bet $5 on any game, pro, college, any sport you want, and get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you use the code Torres. Thank you to our new partners, DraftKings Sportsbook. Thrilled to be working with them. Take advantage of their offer now. Michigan is by far the best team I've seen all year in college football. Now I'm sitting there saying, well, are they the best team because they're awesome? Or are they the best team because their coaches know what's coming before it comes? I think, obviously, if you're an Ohio State fan right now, you're kind of scratching your head saying, wait a second now. Those guys up at that school up north up there, are they really better than us? Or have they maybe known some things that they shouldn't have? I'm sure Penn State fans feel the same way. I'm sure other schools in the Big Ten feel the same way. And so this feels like it just calls into question everything. And I'll be curious what happens next from the Michigan and the Harbaugh perspective. From the Michigan perspective, it'll be interesting, right? Because Michigan's got the future of their program to look out for. And I think when you look at Michigan's decision, listen, I think he's going to coach this weekend, but I think there's going to be pressure, to maybe potentially suspend him. We'll see if that happens. But I think more importantly, there's going to be pressure. Maybe it's not the best thing in the world if he comes back next year. He's broken multiple NCAA rules, multiple run-ins. We know some sort of punishment will come down the road, whether it's scholarship reductions, whether it's a future, future suspension for Harbaugh. So it is a weird moment in time for Michigan, but I'll also say it's a weird moment in time for Harbaugh as well. Because when I look at this, I think all this really does is confirm to me, I think this is the last dance for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. And I've been saying that since a year ago, because we have now had 2 straight off seasons where Jim Harbaugh has flirted with the NFL. Remember, 2 years ago, they make the playoff. Everybody feels good. He had just taken the pay cut. Then, like literally the week after they make the playoff, they lose to Georgia. You hear him linked to the Raiders. You hear him linked to the Bears. That was the same offseason, by the way, where he interviewed with the Minnesota Vikings on National Signing Day, which is still insane to think about. Last year, of course, he flirted with the Carolina Panthers and the Denver Broncos, and I can't even remember who else. But I bring it up because I said at the time, I said, look, when he re-signed to come back to Michigan for one more year, or for this season, I should say, I said, I think this is probably his last year at Michigan because it's clear that this guy wants to get back to the NFL. I think he was ready to go last year if the right opportunity presented itself. But I think what Harbaugh realized was a couple things. Is one, Broncos, Panthers, who knows if an offer was ever handed out. But I think if he was like, if I want to go to a mediocre franchise that isn't winning, I can go next year as well because my 2023 Michigan Wolverines team is on paper going to be the best team that I've had. Now, again, I'm calling into question, are they really the best team that he's had or are they just cheating their butts off? I don't know. But I think a year ago, he sat there and said, why am I going to rush to the NFL? I'm going to come back in 2023, try to win a national championship. Nothing will ever line up better for me. I have Ohio State at home, Ohio State with a first-year quarterback. I own them. Penn State will have a first-year quarterback as well. This is the year that I got to try to make it happen. And I think even before all of this, I think Jim Harbaugh in his head was like, you know what? We're going to give it a run. This is the best team that I've had. If it works out, I get to go out on top. If it doesn't, I get to, I get to say that I got Michigan as close as you can possibly get in the modern era. He also, by the way, had prior to, I guess it was, Wednesday or Thursday, set up the program very nicely for the future. Sharon Moore is a future star in this sport. Mike Hart, great young head coach. The defensive coordinator is well regarded. So I bring it up because it just felt like, even though he would never say it, this felt like the last dance. But now, and this is the important part, I kind of think I don't want to say you have to move off of him. He's the best coach in the history of modern Big Ten. He's the best. I don't want to say the best coach. Lloyd Carr won a national championship, but you get the point that I'm trying to make. He has been a great coach in this era of college football for Michigan. But I think, one, I always suspected that he was ready to leave after this year. But is Michigan going to be ready to move on? Because one, you just look at the situation. This is now twice that he has rubbed his nose at the NCAA or flipped his nose or whatever the term is that I'm looking for, okay? In the summer, remember, it wasn't about the hamburgers. It was about the fact that he refused to apologize, refused to acknowledge it. He kind of changed his stories 2, 3, 4 times. And Michigan, I think, kind of largely had his back at that moment. But now a second thing, a more serious thing, and again, a thing that, in my opinion, is ultimately going to lead to, at some point, probably vacated wins and probably another lengthy suspension for Harbaugh if you try to bring him back. And so I'm not speculating. I'm not making an official thing here on October 20th, 2023. But if I had to guess, I think this is his last year. Just think it makes more sense from Michigan's perspective and certainly probably makes more sense from Harbaugh's perspective. We'll see what happens. As I'm recording here, nothing really kind of earth-shattering from the Michigan side of things. As of now, they're going to let him coach on Saturday. Remember, Michigan has a bye after this week, so it'll be interesting if this quiets down or if it picks back up coming out of the bye. But what a wild story from Jim Harbaugh and Michigan.